their most brutal fight yet. Those are the exact words insiders are using to describe the explosive clash currently tearing through the Sussex household in Montecito, and friends close to the couple are now openly warning that this particular battle could finally end their marriage. We are not talking about petty disagreements over interior design or scheduling conflicts. This is a full-scale war over the most precious things Harry and Meghan possess, their children, and the fundamental question of what kind of lives Archie and Lily will lead. The core conflict is devastatingly simple and utterly irreconcilable. Harry wants his children completely shielded from public view, hidden away from the cameras and the scrutiny that defined and destroyed his own childhood. Meghan, on the other hand, is pushing hard for what insiders describe as carefully managed visibility, positioning the children as part of the expanding Archewell brand. Two parents, two completely opposite visions, and absolutely zero middle ground in sight. Let us be brutally honest here. This is not a disagreement about bedtimes or screen time, or which school the children should attend. This strikes at the very heart of who Harry and Meghan are as people and as parents. It exposes the fundamental incompatibility that has been simmering beneath the surface of their relationship since the moment they stepped off that plane in California. Harry sees protection and privacy as the greatest gifts he can give his children. Meghan sees opportunity and platform, and neither one of them is willing to budge an inch. Sources close to the couple have been remarkably forthcoming about what is happening behind closed doors in that $9 million Montecito mansion. The arguments have become increasingly heated, the accusations have become increasingly personal, and the fear among those who know them best is becoming increasingly urgent. One insider put it bluntly: if neither of them is willing to bend, this could be the thing that finally breaks the marriage. Not the media pressure, not the family estrangement, not the failed business ventures, the children. What makes this particular fight so explosive is that it touches on everything Harry and Meghan claim to stand for. Harry has spent years positioning himself as the traumatized prince who escaped the royal machine to protect his family from the same fate. Meghan has spent years positioning herself as the devoted mother putting her children first. And now we are discovering that these two narratives are not just different, they are fundamentally incompatible. Someone is going to have to surrender their entire identity to resolve this conflict, and based on everything we know about these two personalities, surrender is not exactly in their vocabulary. But to understand why this fight cuts so deep and why it could genuinely destroy this marriage, we need to examine the exact words being exchanged behind those closed Montecito doors and the explosive reporting that first brought this crisis to light. The bombshell report comes from Radar Online, and the sourcing has caught the attention of royal watchers across the globe. This is not speculation from anonymous internet commentators or wishful thinking from Sussex critics. This is detailed insider information that paints a devastating picture of a marriage under extreme strain. The report, which draws on multiple sources close to the couple, reveals that Harry and Meghan's disagreement over their children has reached a critical breaking point. One insider quote in particular captures the impossible nature of their situation. This is an issue where they are fundamentally pulling in different directions, and no matter how many times they think they have parked it, it resurfaces again. Let that sink in for a moment. This is not a one-time argument that can be resolved with a heart-to-heart conversation or a couples therapy session. This is a fundamental philosophical divide that keeps erupting no matter how many times they try to paper over it. They have attempted to resolve this before. They have failed, and they keep failing. The December rebrand appears to have been the flashpoint that reignited the conflict. When Harry and Meghan announced the transformation of Archewell into Archewell Philanthropies, the language they used sent alarm bells ringing through their inner circle. The new mission statement explicitly promised to expand their global charitable work as a family. As a family, not as a couple, as a family. For Harry, those two words represented everything he has been fighting against. For Meghan, they represented everything she has been pushing toward. Sources describe the emotional weight of this disagreement as almost unbearable for both parties. This is not about marketing strategies or brand positioning. One insider explained, it strikes at their identities as parents and what they believe their children's lives should look like. Harry genuinely believes he is protecting his children from the same trauma that scarred his childhood. Meghan genuinely believes she is giving her children opportunities and visibility that will benefit their futures. Neither one of them is acting in bad faith. Neither one of them is being deliberately cruel. They simply cannot see the world through each other's eyes. The reporting also reveals that this disagreement has been festering far longer than most people realize. This is not a recent development sparked by the rebrand. This is an ongoing battle that has been raging since before Archie was even born. The only thing that has changed is the intensity. As the children get older, as Archewell requires more content, as the couple's other revenue streams continue to dry up, the pressure to resolve this conflict one way or another has become overwhelming, and the window for compromise is rapidly closing. And when you dig into Harry's psychology and the childhood trauma that still haunts him, you will understand why he simply cannot bend on this issue no matter how much pressure Meghan applies. Harry's fierce protectiveness over his children is not stubbornness. It is not controlling behavior. It is not an attempt to undermine his wife. According to sources close to the prince, it is rooted in childhood scars that remain raw to this day. Wounds that have never fully healed despite years of therapy, despite leaving the royal family, despite putting an ocean between himself and the institution that inflicted them. One insider's description of Harry's psychological state is haunting. He carries a lot of unresolved anger about how exposed and packaged his childhood felt. Think about that for a moment. This is a man who grew up in a fishbowl, whose every awkward moment was captured by photographers, whose grief over his mother's death was broadcast to billions of people around the world. He was 12 years old when he walked behind Diana's coffin while the entire planet watched. 12. And now he has children of his own, and every instinct in his body is screaming at him to protect them from the same fate. Sources reveal that Harry's private arguments to Meghan have been passionate and uncompromising. He believes their children should be shielded entirely until they are old enough to choose for themselves whether they want public lives, not partially shielded, not carefully managed, entirely shielded. He does not want Archie and Lily to grow up seeing themselves as content, or as brand ambassadors, or as anything other than normal children with normal childhoods. The fact that this is virtually impossible given who their parents are does not change his fundamental position. The depth of Harry's conviction becomes even clearer when you examine his stated philosophy about royal expectations. According to insiders, he is deeply opposed to Archie and Lily inheriting any sense of duty or expectation or pressure simply because of their birth. He has watched his brother's children grow up in the spotlight, seen the public scrutiny that George and Charlotte and Louis face, and he is determined that his own children will have a different experience. Whether that determination is realistic or even achievable is another question entirely. What makes Harry's position so emotionally charged is that it connects directly to his feelings about his mother. Diana famously tried to give her boys normal experiences, to shield them from the worst aspects of royal life, and in Harry's mind, she was punished for it. Hounded by paparazzi, criticized by the institution, and ultimately killed in a car being chased by photographers. For Harry, exposing his children to public scrutiny is not just a parenting decision. It is a betrayal of everything his mother died trying to protect. But Meghan sees the situation through an entirely different lens, one focused on something far more practical than childhood trauma, and her reasoning reveals everything about the future she envisions for the Sussex family. While Harry wants to hide the children away from the world, insiders describe Meghan as taking a more pragmatic approach to the question of visibility. And folks, when you examine her reasoning closely, it reveals everything you need to know about her priorities and her vision for what the Sussex brand can become. She is not thinking about protection. She is thinking about positioning. One insider's quote perfectly captures Meghan's argument. She frames it as wanting the flexibility to include them in everyday moments without it being framed as some calculated reveal. Allow me to translate that for you. She does not want every appearance by Archie or Lily to be treated as a major event. She wants the children normalized as part of the family's public presence so that their visibility becomes unremarkable rather than newsworthy. It sounds reasonable on the surface, but the implications are anything but innocent. Meghan's counter-argument to Harry reportedly centers on what she sees as an unfair double standard. Their royal cousins, she points out, are openly present on social media. George, Charlotte, and Louis appear regularly on the Prince and Princess of Wales's official accounts. They attend public events. They are photographed at school plays and sporting events. If William and Catherine can include their children in their public lives without being accused of exploitation, Meghan argues, why should she and Harry be held to a different standard? The logic continues from there. According to sources, Meghan believes that keeping the children completely invisible only invites more curiosity, gossip, and scrutiny from the outside world. The less people see of Archie and Lily, she argues, the more desperate the media becomes to capture any image of them. By controlling the narrative and releasing carefully curated content on their own terms, they can actually reduce the paparazzi pressure rather than increase it. It is a fascinating argument. It is also, according to critics, completely self-serving. What Meghan's position conveniently ignores is the fundamental difference between her situation and the Waleses. William and Catherine are working members of the royal family. Their children are in the direct line of succession. Public visibility is not a choice for them, but an obligation. Harry and Meghan chose to leave that world behind. They chose privacy. They chose to raise their children away from the institution. For Meghan to now argue that the children should have the same visibility as their royal cousins, while enjoying none of the responsibilities is, to put it mildly, selective reasoning. But one prominent royal commentator has put Meghan's true motivation far more bluntly than any insider quote, and his assessment cuts right to the heart of what this conflict is really about. She wants the money. That is the unfiltered, devastating assessment from royal commentator Rob Shooter when asked what is really driving Meghan's position on the children's visibility. Not family moments, not flexibility, not reducing media scrutiny. Money. The word lands like a hammer, and when you examine the evidence, it becomes increasingly difficult to argue with his conclusion. Shooter draws a direct comparison between Meghan's apparent ambitions and the parenting strategies of other celebrity mothers. She wants to exploit these two children in the same way that Beyoncé exploits Blue Ivy, or the way that Kim Kardashian exploits Northwest. Let that sink in for a moment. We are talking about treating children as content, as brand extensions, as revenue generators. And according to those who study the Sussexes closely, this is exactly what Meghan has in mind for Archie and Lily. The Victoria Beckham parallel is particularly illuminating. Shooter suggests that Meghan sees in the Beckham family a template for what her own family could become, a dynasty where children grow into brand ambassadors, where family events become content opportunities, where the line between private life and public performance disappears entirely. She sees how fabulous their future can be for the whole family and part of the brand, Shooter explains. Note the word fabulous, not healthy, not normal, not protected, fabulous. In contrast, Harry reportedly favors what Shooter describes as the Mel B approach, keeping children firmly behind the scenes and away from the public spotlight. It is a complete 180-degree difference in philosophy. Meghan sees the children as potential stars of the Sussex show. Harry sees them as civilians who deserve protection from the very industry that made their parents famous. Two visions, zero overlap, and a marriage caught in the middle. The commercialization accusation gains even more weight when you consider the couple's current financial situation. Their speaking fees have plummeted. Their content deals have underperformed. Their foundation is reportedly operating with a skeleton staff. In this context, the children represent one of the few remaining assets that could potentially revive the Sussex brand. Fresh content, new storylines, renewed public interest. All it requires is Harry surrendering his principles. The hypocrisy in Harry's own position, however, is absolutely staggering, and it reveals just how thoroughly Meghan has already won this battle. Just last year, Prince Harry appeared on a podcast and made sweeping declarations about protecting children from social media exposure. He did not mince words. He did not hedge his statements. He declared categorically that no parents should post their children online. It was a bold stance. It was a principled position, and it was completely contradicted by what his own wife was already doing with their children at that very moment. The podcast appearance showcased Harry at his most passionate and preachy, lecturing the world about the dangers of childhood exposure while seemingly unaware of the irony dripping from every word. He spoke about protecting children's privacy. He spoke about the psychological damage of growing up in the public eye. He spoke about giving children the right to choose their own relationship with media when they are old enough to understand the consequences. And then he went home to a wife who had already made that choice for their children without their consent. Rob Shooter's observation about this dynamic is brutally honest. Harry has lost the battle from day one, he explains. It has been Meghan's way or the highway. Think about what that means. All of Harry's passionate speeches about protection, all of his therapy-informed insights about childhood trauma, all of his determination to give his children a different experience than he had, have amounted to precisely nothing in the face of Meghan's ambitions. He talks a good game, but when it comes to actual decisions about his children's visibility, he has been consistently overruled. The logical impossibility of Harry's position becomes even more apparent when you examine his other stated goals. He reportedly wants to return to the United Kingdom at some point. He reportedly wants his children to eventually take on some form of royal role. He reportedly wants to repair his relationship with his father and brother, and yet he simultaneously expects his children to remain completely hidden from public view. How exactly does he imagine that working? You cannot be a prince in the British monarchy while living as a private citizen. The two things are mutually exclusive. What we are witnessing, according to observers, is a man caught between his principles and his reality. Harry believes one thing and lives another. He preaches privacy while his wife posts the children. He demands protection while agreeing to Netflix documentaries. He condemns media intrusion while selling his story to the highest bidder. The cognitive dissonance is remarkable, and according to insiders, Meghan has learned to exploit it masterfully. But the standoff over the children has now escalated into something far more dangerous for the marriage, and sources are revealing just how tense things have become behind closed doors in Montecito. Sources close to the couple reveal that the disagreements over Archie and Lily have sparked very tense, emotionally charged discussions behind closed doors. We are not talking about polite disagreements over dinner. We are talking about the kind of arguments where voices are raised, where accusations fly, where both parties walk away feeling unheard and misunderstood, and the pattern is becoming increasingly concerning. One insider's description of their fundamental incompatibility is devastating. Harry's reflex is to protect and pull inward, while Meghan's is to create, expand, and move forward. Read that again slowly. These are not complementary approaches that can be balanced with good communication. These are diametrically opposed instincts that pull in completely different directions. Every time a decision needs to be made about the children's visibility, these two forces collide, and there is no referee. there is no neutral party who can adjudicate between them. The recurring nature of this conflict is perhaps its most troubling aspect. This disagreement is not an isolated flare-up, sources reveal. It keeps resurfacing in different forms. They think they have resolved it during one conversation, and then a new opportunity arises, a new content possibility presents itself, a new decision needs to be made, and suddenly they are right back where they started. The same arguments, the same accusations, the same fundamental impasse. It is exhausting for both of them, and it is taking a visible toll on the marriage. The warning from those close to the couple could not be clearer. There is a real risk it could harden into a power struggle if neither side is willing to compromise. Note the language, not might, could. The risk is real, the danger is present, and the people who know Harry and Meghan best are genuinely worried about where this is heading. A power struggle between two stubborn, strong-willed individuals over their children's futures is not a recipe for marital harmony. It is a recipe for destruction. What makes this situation even more volatile is the absence of any obvious compromise position. Harry cannot agree to partial visibility because that violates his core principle of letting children choose for themselves. Meghan cannot accept total privacy because that undermines her entire vision for the family brand. There is no middle ground that satisfies both positions. Someone has to win, someone has to lose, and the loser is going to resent that outcome for the rest of their lives. Understanding what really holds Harry and Meghan together in the first place reveals why this particular fight over the children could be the one that finally destroys them. Rob Shooter's analysis of what actually bonds Harry and Meghan is uncomfortable to hear but impossible to ignore. They are quite petty, he explains. They like to have a good joke about people. They like to play the victims together. Let that assessment wash over you for a moment. According to this royal commentator, the glue holding this marriage together is not love or shared values or complementary personalities. It is mutual grievance. It is shared enemies. It is the satisfaction of mocking others from their Montecito perch. If Shooter's assessment is accurate, and the evidence certainly supports it, then the children's fight represents a fundamental threat to the marriage's foundation. You cannot play the victim when you are fighting each other. You cannot unite against outside enemies when you have become each other's enemy. You cannot bond over shared grievances when the grievance is your spouse's vision for your children. The very thing that has kept them together is now being torn apart by this irreconcilable conflict. The observation about how parenthood changes everything is particularly relevant here. Having children transforms people in a way that even a marriage or wedding does not, Shooter notes. Before Archie and Lily, Harry and Meghan could paper over their differences because the stakes were relatively low. A disagreement about a documentary was just a disagreement about a documentary. A conflict over a public appearance was just a conflict over a public appearance. But a battle over your children's futures? That touches something primal. That activates instincts that cannot be reasoned with or negotiated away. The contrast in how Harry and Meghan view those futures could not be starker. Harry wonders about their future, Shooter explains, emphasizing the protective uncertainty in the prince's thinking. Meghan wonders how fabulous their future can be, emphasizing the ambitious optimism in her approach. Both of them genuinely care about their children. Both of them genuinely want what is best for Archie and Lily, but they have completely different definitions of what best means. And unlike most parenting disagreements, this one cannot be resolved by splitting the difference. What makes this dynamic even more tragic is that both Harry and Meghan probably believe they are acting out of love. Harry's protectiveness comes from his trauma, but also from his deep desire to give his children something he never had. Meghan's ambition comes from her drive, but also from her genuine belief that visibility and opportunity will benefit her children's lives. Neither of them is a villain here. They are just two people with incompatible visions for the humans they love most. The couple's other mounting failures in business and public relations are making this already explosive disagreement over the children even more combustible. The numbers are absolutely brutal, and they tell the story of a brand in freefall. Harry and Meghan's speaking fees have reportedly plummeted from $1 million per appearance to as low as $50,000. Let that sink in for a moment. A 95% reduction in their market value. A collapse so severe that it represents not just a setback but a complete reassessment of their worth in the entertainment and corporate worlds. They have gone from premium product to clearance bin in record time. The failed ventures continue to pile up like wreckage from a slow-motion train crash. Spotify reportedly built them $1 million podcast studio that they refused to use, preferring to record elsewhere while the company footed the bill for an empty room. The Archetypes podcast was canceled after just one season. Their Netflix deal has produced content that consistently underperforms expectations. The pattern is unmistakable. Harry and Meghan talk big, promise bigger, and deliver virtually nothing of value. Rob Shooter's assessment of their fundamental problem is devastating in its accuracy. The only thing that makes Harry and Meghan interesting is the one thing they are trying to run away from: the royal family. Read that again. Their entire appeal, their entire market value, their entire reason for commanding any attention at all comes from their connection to an institution they have spent years attacking and distancing themselves from. It is a business model built on self-destruction, and it is collapsing exactly as anyone with common sense predicted it would. This financial reality is precisely why the children have become such a flashpoint. The Sussex brand desperately needs content. It desperately needs new storylines. It desperately needs something, anything, to recapture the public interest that has been steadily evaporating since their initial departure from royal life. And what do Harry and Meghan have that could potentially provide all of those things? Two adorable children that the world is desperate to see. Archie and Lily are not just their babies. In the cold calculus of brand management, they are assets. They are content. They are potentially the last hope for the Sussex empire. The desperation this creates is palpable. When you are watching your income collapse, when you are watching your relevance fade, when you are watching everything you built slipping through your fingers, the temptation to exploit your remaining assets becomes overwhelming. Harry wants to protect the children from exactly this kind of exploitation. Meghan sees it as the obvious solution to their mounting problems, and the gap between those positions grows wider with every failed venture and every declined invitation. Which brings us to the question that everyone following this saga has been asking about the future of this marriage and whether it can possibly survive what is coming next. The impasse facing Harry and Meghan is genuinely tragic when you step back and examine it objectively. These are two parents who both love their children deeply and genuinely want what is best for them. They are not fighting because one of them is selfish and the other is selfless. They are fighting because they have fundamentally irreconcilable visions for what their children's lives should look like. And there is no compromise that can satisfy both visions. Someone has to win, someone has to lose, and whoever loses is going to carry that resentment for the rest of their lives. The warning from insiders could not be more ominous. If neither of them is willing to bend, people around them fear it could be the thing that finally breaks the marriage. Not the media pressure, not the family estrangement, not the business failures, not the staff exodus, the children. The most precious things in their lives have become the battlefield on which their marriage may finally die. There is something almost Shakespearean about it, a tragedy where love itself becomes the instrument of destruction. The irony of Harry's situation is almost too painful to contemplate. Here is a man who gave up everything, his family, his country, his identity, his inheritance, supposedly to protect his wife and children from the toxic environment of the royal family. And now, 5 years later, his wife is pushing for exactly the kind of exposure he fled to escape. She wants the cameras, she wants the content, she wants the visibility. Everything Harry sacrificed to avoid for his children, Meghan now wants to embrace. The universe has a cruel sense of humor. The question that hangs over everything now is simple but profound. Will Harry finally stand his ground to protect Archie and Lily from the future Meghan envisions for them, or will he surrender this last battle like he has surrendered everything else over the past 5 years? His track record suggests the latter. He has given up his family for her, he has given up his country for her, he has given up his friends and his reputation and his legacy for her. The children may be the one thing he refuses to sacrifice, or they may be just another thing Meghan takes. Only time will tell how this plays out, but one thing is absolutely certain. The Sussex marriage has never been under more pressure than it is right now, and the cracks are showing for all the world to see. Two people who once seemed so united in their grievances are now turning those grievances on each other, and in the middle of it all are two innocent children whose futures hang in the balance. Drop your thoughts below. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned. The next video is waiting, and you will not believe what is coming next.